Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. All right, I got a little bit of a life hack during your summer vacation this summer. Wherever you're going, doesn't really matter. This hack, or even a staycation, this hack could work as well. I want you to, as you're taking a break away from your work, mentally think about what you're actually breaking from, right? Are you taking a break from the actual meat of the work that you're doing, right? Do you not like your job? Or is it all the ancillary stuff that surrounds work, right? So for me, it was actually the latter. When I made a list of the top three things that I Peter disliked about my work, probably the top three things were the hot weather in Phoenix, the difficult time I have with social networking over in Phoenix, and the long commutes. Believe it or not. And there were a few other things. So a lot of times, well, the other things kind of all bordered on these three, right? A lot of times, I don't bode well with chemistry with some of my colleagues. For example, I had one student who was really behind taking his midterm exam. He kept giving me excuse after excuse after excuse. He got COVID-19 who knows how many times. And he had six grandparents that had passed away, and he had gone through five cars that had all stalled in the middle of the highway, and whatever, right? And I knew that he wanted to buy time to study, but I thought it's better that he actually finishes. I knew he was studying because he would send me periodic updates on what was going on. He was trying to buy time, stall before taking the final, and that's part of the reason why I let him. And finally, one day he texts me. I'm in whatever building, and I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I was in the middle of lunch. It's very seldom do I walk away from the middle of a meal because I love my food. I get it into huge anxiety fits when somebody pulls me away from a meal. I've talked about this on my channel, but that day I made an exception. That's how much I love some of my students. And my colleague could have asked me what was going on, and I would have told him about the student. Ha ha! Look at this. He stalled for 2 weeks just to get extra time to study, and instead he writes to HR. And I just don't beat at the right chemistry with a lot of my colleagues, right? A lot of my colleagues have very different interests than I do. They love their sports. I can never follow any of that. I obviously don't go drinking with my colleagues. And so it's difficult for them to have the same kind of heartbeat as me, right, if you will. And that's the chaos that I run into. But when I thought about it, I don't Peter dislike the actual meat of my work, right? I've learned that there's no such thing as a blah, right? Somebody who's does whatever their job title is. There's a lot that goes on around that job in order to make that happen, right? For one thing, they probably have to commute there, right? For another, there's a lot of workplace politics, right? So the next time you hear somebody does blah and it's your dream job, just remember that there's a lot that surrounds it, right? But when I made the list, it made it clear what I needed to do, and I think from now on I'm going to spend my summers here in Taiwan because I actually network way better here. I went on several dates in just the space of 1 month. I probably went on more productive dating than I have in years of living back home in the United States. I think dating in the United States is almost like glorified prostitution. It really is. There's a lot of very shallow interactions, and there's a lot of emotional game playing, and I don't run into any of that here in Taiwan. I just run into a lot of distractions because I've been so excited about things. I misplaced my passport 2 weeks ago. And I had a lot of drama with that. My aunt and uncle were helping me out. And then somebody stole my wallet the other day. I think I'm just too excited and all that. And but you know what? Despite all of that drama happening, I am so at ease with things. I mean, in large part because I'm not driving. And when I get home, I'm gonna think about other transportation arrangements. I'm gonna see. I'm gonna investigate the concept of maybe I can get rid of the car and just take Uber everywhere. I'm really thinking about that. Nowadays, owning a car isn't even all that cheap anyway. And I don't know. I'm gonna investigate it. I mean, I'm not gonna commit to it just yet. But without driving, a lot of stress evaporates because nothing I do is nearly as dangerous as and unpredictable as driving, right? Not only dangerous in the sense of life or death, but also a lot of unpredictabilities. Cars have a tendency to break down when you least expect it. To give you an idea, last winter, my friend had set me up on a blind date and he put so much effort into it. I would hate to see something go wrong with it. And I arrived around the place of where the date was going to happen 3 hours ahead of time because I thought for sure my car's going to die on the way there. That's how my luck tends to play out. I went to see a solar eclipse in Kerrville, Texas. The eclipse was on a Monday. My car, at the time I was driving a Kia Forte, has a tendency to get a flat tire every time it's a Sunday and there's no tire shop open. So I made sure to make most of that drive on Friday and Saturday. I made sure to be in Kerrville by Saturday night. And so it just adds a huge layer of uncertainty to the day, right? And then, not to mention, getting behind the wheel is probably the most dangerous thing I do on a given day, right? As much as I love dangerous art projects and all that, I'd argue the car is still by far 90% of the source of danger in my life, right? The art projects might be 8 or 9%, but the car is probably 90%, right? And all that poof, right? I'm not doing the art projects here either, so all of that went poof as well. And all of a sudden, I feel so safe. That's why I get my wallet stolen. That's why I thought somebody had stolen my passport the other day. I just feel so safe, and nothing can touch me anymore, right? Uh, and so that takes care of the summers. That takes care of my dating life, and I'm gonna think about the transportation. And without those three, I really do feel I have a dream job. This is the Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum. The Peter Dislike Show. Bum 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 bum.